She told me she still loved him, even as she admitted she'd cheated. Her voice didn't sound defiant, it sounded broken. "I don't even know why I did it," she said, staring at her wedding ring like it belonged to someone else. "He's a good man. He loves me. I love him. But I felt nothing." That's the line that stays with you. I felt nothing. Because it breaks the fairy tale every man believes in. The belief that love is enough to keep her loyal, that devotion protects you from betrayal. But love isn't armor, it's chemistry. And when that chemistry dies, morality starts to erode with it. Women don't cheat because they stop loving their man. They cheat because something inside them stops feeling alive, and someone else, for a fleeting moment, makes them feel again. We grow up believing that love and loyalty are twins, inseparable, unconditional, eternal. Movies, vows, and every romantic cliché whisper the same promise. If she loves you, she won't betray you. But that's not how reality works. Love and loyalty live in the same house, but they don't always sleep in the same bed. A woman can love you deeply and still drift. Not because her heart changed, but because her experience of that love did. Love is an emotion, loyalty is a decision. And when emotions fade, decisions start to waver. That's the part most men never understand. They measure her love by her words, not her state of mind. They assume affection means permanence. But emotions are weather. They shift, they cool, they storm. Women cheat not because they stop caring, but because their emotional environment changes. Love can survive boredom, stress, and time, but it struggles to survive numbness. When she no longer feels seen, desired, or alive, her loyalty doesn't disappear. It just loses oxygen. Here's the brutal truth. Love is not a moral compass. It's a chemical connection that needs maintenance, polarity, and emotional tension to stay alive. Without that, love becomes memory, something she remembers fondly but no longer feels. And in that gap between memory and emotion, mistakes are made. Not premeditated betrayal, slow erosion. The kind where she starts talking to someone new because he just listens. The kind where she convinces herself she's not doing anything wrong. Because technically she isn't, not yet. Men think loyalty means she won't leave. But for women, loyalty starts dying the moment her feeling does. She might stay beside you, still say she loves you. But inside, the connection has already cracked. And once she starts looking for that missing piece somewhere else, the fall begins long before the act. It rarely begins with betrayal. It begins with silence. The kind that builds between two people who still share a bed but no longer share a pulse. She wakes up next to a man who's steady, reliable, and safe. But something inside her feels cold. The mornings feel the same, the dinners feel rehearsed, the laughter feels forced. He hasn't done anything wrong, yet she feels disconnected, invisible, unseen. This is the quiet decay that no one talks about. Love doesn't die from conflict. It dies from emotional starvation. For women, love is oxygen. It needs to breathe, to move, to feel alive. But when the relationship becomes routine, her nervous system goes numb. She's not craving a new man. She's craving herself. The version of her that used to laugh without thinking, that used to feel wanted, that used to feel awake. The tragedy is that this emptiness doesn't always show. On the surface, she plays her role. Loyal wife, good partner, dependable mother. She keeps the peace. But underneath, there's quiet resentment. Not toward him, but toward herself for no longer feeling anything. She loves the life they built, but she misses the feeling that built it. It's not greed that makes her restless. It's loss. The loss of polarity, tension, excitement. The loss of her feminine vitality that once thrived on emotional connection. And when that energy dies, she begins searching for sparks in the dark. A conversation that feels different. A glance that lasts a second too long. It's not about sex. It's about sensation. Most men mistake this restlessness for selfishness, but it's actually a form of mourning. She's grieving the death of who she used to be when love still felt electric. The danger is that instead of facing that emptiness, she fills it with attention from elsewhere. And that attention becomes the drug that numbs her truth, that she's not missing him, she's missing herself. When she finally crosses the line, it won't be out of hate, it'll be out of hunger. Because no matter how much she loves him, no woman can survive feeling emotionally invisible forever. Every affair begins long before the first kiss. It starts inside the body, in the ancient wiring of the human brain. Desire isn't moral, it's chemical. And when those chemicals stop firing inside a relationship, the body begins searching for a new source of stimulation. That's not justification, it's biology. The female brain is a symphony of dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin, the chemicals of connection, novelty, and pleasure. When a woman falls in love, her brain lights up with dopamine, the thrill of uncertainty, the excitement of discovery, the rush of being desired. But over time, stability replaces novelty, and that same brain recalibrates. The highs fade, the thrill softens, the chemistry changes. What once felt like fire becomes warmth, and warmth, if left unattended, becomes neutrality. This is where the quiet danger begins. The body misses the spark, not the person. It craves the hormonal cocktail that made love feel alive. And when that craving isn't met inside the relationship, it looks elsewhere, not consciously, but biologically. A casual conversation with a stranger releases the tiniest hit of dopamine. A compliment reignites buried circuits, and in that moment, she's reminded what aliveness feels like. She doesn't set out to cheat. She's following a chemical whisper that says, "Remember this." The problem is that the brain doesn't distinguish between emotional and moral boundaries. It only seeks stimulation. What begins as harmless validation quietly becomes dependency. That's how addiction starts. Not to the man, but to the feeling. This is why affairs are rarely about lust. They're about chemistry, about a woman's nervous system waking up from emotional sedation. The affair becomes a biological rebellion against routine, a desperate attempt to feel the hormones that her safe, stable life no longer triggers. The cruel irony is that the new high never lasts. Once novelty fades, the same chemistry resets again, and she's left emptier than before. Because what she's chasing isn't a man. It's her own neurochemical past. She doesn't realize it yet, but she's not addicted to excitement. She's addicted to contrast, to the emotional tension that makes her feel alive. And no relationship can survive when one person mistakes chemistry for meaning. Every woman wants to feel desired, not just loved, but seen. It's a quiet need that doesn't vanish with commitment. In the beginning, she feels radiant because your eyes tell her she's everything. Your words, your energy, your hunger. They remind her she matters. But over time, something changes. Not because you stop loving her, but because familiarity dulls perception. You stop looking with wonder. You start looking with habit. And to her, that shift feels like rejection. The validation vacuum doesn't appear overnight. It builds slowly. One forgotten compliment, one distracted conversation, one night of scrolling through your phone instead of noticing her. She won't say anything at first. She'll tell herself it's normal, that this is what long-term love looks like. But deep down, she starts to feel like a background character in her own life. The spotlight that once made her glow has dimmed, and she's left performing in the dark. Then it happens. Someone notices her. It might be a co-worker, a stranger, a friend, someone who looks at her the way you used to, and that look hits like lightning. It's not about the person, it's about the feeling. That single moment fills the emptiness that's been growing inside her. It reawakens her feminine energy, her sense of worth, her identity as a woman rather than just a partner. What men often misunderstand is that attention to a woman is not vanity. It's feedback. It tells her, I exist, I'm still desirable, I still have value. When she stops receiving that feedback from you, her mind begins seeking it elsewhere, not out of disloyalty but survival. Validation becomes oxygen, and like oxygen, she'll take it from wherever she can find it. This is how emotional infidelity begins, not with intent but with neglect. You thought love was enough, she needed acknowledgement. And when that acknowledgement came from someone else, it felt intoxicating. Not because she didn't love you, but because for the first time in a long time she felt seen again. The danger isn't that she wanted more attention, it's that she stopped getting it from the one person whose gaze once made her world feel complete. Every relationship eventually drifts into comfort, that familiar rhythm of predictability where you know each other's routines, reactions, and moods before they happen. It feels safe, peaceful, reliable. But here's the paradox. What brings peace often kills passion. The same stability that makes love last also makes it invisible. In the beginning, comfort is seductive. You can finally breathe. There's no performance, no fear of loss, no games. But over time, that comfort begins to blur the edges of attraction. You stop flirting. You stop surprising her. You stop creating tension. The good kind, the kind that fuels desire. You trade curiosity for certainty, mystery for routine. And without even realizing it, you start treating her like family instead of a woman. For men, this feels like love deepening. For women, it often feels like the death of polarity. Because attraction isn't sustained by peace, it's sustained by energy. The masculine energy that leads, moves, and challenges her emotional world. When that disappears, she doesn't feel safe. She feels unseen. Not because she doesn't value the calm, but because calm without polarity becomes emotional stillness. So she starts seeking small doses of chaos to feel alive again. Maybe she picks fights that make no sense. Maybe she withdraws just to see if you'll chase. Maybe she starts talking about missing excitement, but she can't explain what that means. What she's really saying is, I miss the feeling of wanting you. You see, comfort without tension is security without spark, and security without emotional stimulation feels like silence to her nervous system. The relationship becomes a beautifully built home that no longer feels like home. Most men respond by doubling down on effort. More date nights, more reassurance, more consistency. But you can't fix lost polarity with routine. What she needs isn't comfort, it's contrast. The feeling that she's still with a man who could lose her, but chooses not to. When comfort replaces challenge, she doesn't feel safe. She feels forgotten. And that's when her heart starts scanning the horizon, not for someone better, but for something different. It starts quietly, almost innocently. She's scrolling through her phone one night, half distracted, half bored. A familiar name appears, an old flame, a stranger who said something charming, a photo that reminds her of who she used to be. She doesn't think much of it, until she realizes how that memory makes her feel. A small spark, a flicker of nostalgia, the subtle reminder that she used to be desired, playful, unpredictable. The mind is a cruel editor. It filters out the fights, the flaws, the ordinary days, and leaves only the highlights. She's not comparing men, she's comparing versions of herself. The woman she was back then, spontaneous, vibrant, alive, versus the woman she sees now, calm but dulled by predictability. Social media amplifies this illusion. Every scroll shows a story of excitement. Women her age rediscovering themselves, couples travelling, influencers posting affection that looks effortless. She starts to compare not because she's ungrateful, but because her nervous system is chasing emotional stimulation in a world that's always on display. And in that comparison, dissatisfaction blooms quietly. This is how distance begins without either of you noticing. She starts to live in her head, half in the past, half in imagined futures. You'll sense it before you can name it. Her laughter feels delayed. Her presence feels partial. Her affection starts to feel like an act of memory rather than instinct. She's physically there but emotionally elsewhere. And here's the most dangerous part. The comparison doesn't need to be about people. Sometimes it's about moments. The moment someone looked at her like she was extraordinary. The moment she felt desired without effort. The moment she felt like her. Those moments become her quiet rebellion against the monotony of being loved but not awakened. Men often dismiss this as emotional immaturity, but it's deeper than that. It's a psychological defense, an attempt to feel alive in a life that has become emotionally flat. The longer the comparison continues, the more distance it creates. And before she even realizes it, she's emotionally halfway out the door, not chasing another man, but chasing the ghost of the woman she used to be. Most affairs don't begin in hotel rooms, they begin in inboxes, inside jokes, late-night conversations that start as harmless comfort and slowly drift into danger. She doesn't mean for it to happen. She tells herself it's innocent. We're just friends. But that sentence, those 3 words, are where most emotional affairs are born. It starts with connection. He listens differently. He asks questions she hasn't been asked in years. He notices the small things her partner stopped noticing. Her tone, her eyes, her silence. And in those moments, her emotional world starts to open, not to romance, but to recognition. She feels seen again. That's the beginning of the betrayal. An emotional affair is not about sex. It's about attention. It's about sharing parts of herself that no longer feel safe or valued at home. The moment she starts confiding in another man about the problems in her relationship, she's already crossed a line her partner can't see but will eventually feel. Because emotional intimacy is the first layer of connection. Once that bond forms elsewhere, physical temptation is only a symptom. She doesn't fall in love with the other man. She falls in love with how she feels around him. That rush of novelty, that validation, that reminder that she still matters. And because it feels emotional rather than physical, she convinces herself it's harmless, even noble. He's just helping me through a hard time. But what she's really doing is escaping accountability for the emotional gap she's helping widen. By the time she realizes how deep she's gone, she's already emotionally replaced her partner. She's comparing, rationalizing, justifying. He understands me better, she thinks. But that's not understanding. That's newness. And newness always feels like understanding until reality catches up. The cruel irony, the emotional affair makes her feel alive, but it also erodes the very foundation that could have revived her real relationship. Every secret message, every hidden call, is another layer of distance between her and the man who still believes she's faithful, not just in body, but in heart. The moment it happens, she knows. Not because anyone finds out, but because something inside her shifts. The thrill that once made her feel alive now sits in her chest like a weight she can't exhale. Guilt creeps in quietly, not through tears or confession, but through avoidance. She becomes distant, distracted, impatient. The same excitement that pulled her in now poisons her peace. She tells herself it wasn't that serious, that her relationship was already broken, that her partner pushed her away. But beneath those excuses is a quiet truth she can't face. She crossed a line not because she stopped loving him, but because she stopped loving who she became in the relationship. And instead of rebuilding that connection with him, she borrowed it from someone else. That's what makes the guilt so unbearable. It's not just about betrayal, it's about identity. She doesn't hate her partner. She hates that she's no longer the woman she wanted to be, loyal, grounded, safe. But shame has a survival instinct. It rewrites history. To live with what she's done, she reframes everything. He never really cared. We were already falling apart. It just happened. These justifications aren't lies to him. They're lies to herself. Anesthetics for a wound she caused but can't clean. Each rationalization dulls the sting of self-betrayal. But deep down, she knows she traded truth for escape. The emotional aftermath of infidelity isn't freedom, it's fragmentation. She's torn between the comfort of familiarity and the chaos of desire, between guilt and longing, between the man who built her world and the man who briefly made her feel it again. Eventually she'll realize the most painful part isn't that she hurt him, it's that she lost herself in the process. Because no affair ever fills the void, it only expands it. At the heart of every dying relationship lies one invisible force, the collapse of polarity. The magnetic tension between masculine and feminine energy, the very current that creates attraction, begins to fade, not because love disappears, but because sameness takes over. When a man becomes too accommodating, too predictable, too emotionally dependent, he slowly loses the very energy that once pulled her in. The polarity that once created desire turns into neutrality. He's no longer the storm she wants to surrender to. He's the safety net she's already fallen into. And while that might sound noble, safety without polarity doesn't ignite attraction. It numbs it. A woman's desire is not sustained by comfort. It's sustained by contrast. The interplay between her softness and his strength, her emotion and his groundedness. When that contrast vanishes, her feminine energy has nowhere to flow. She stops feeling drawn to him, not because he changed, but because he stopped leading. The loss of polarity is the silent killer of modern relationships. It doesn't announce itself with arguments or distance. It seeps in through politeness, routine, and fear of tension. Men today mistake being agreeable for being loving. But a woman doesn't want a mirror. She wants a mountain. Something firm enough to steady her emotions against, strong enough to make her feel safe in her surrender. When polarity dies, she unconsciously seeks it elsewhere. Not always through another man, but through experiences that reawaken her energy. Chaos, danger, risk, or passion. It's not that she wants to cheat, she wants to feel alive, and if he no longer represents that emotional charge, her instincts will search until she finds it again. The tragedy is that she doesn't realize what she's really chasing: masculine polarity. Not a different man, just a different energy. Polarity is not about dominance, it's about presence. The man who reclaims his purpose, confidence, and boundaries restores that charge without manipulation. Because when he moves with direction again, she feels it. Her body, her mind, her desire all respond. Attraction isn't rekindled through words, it's reignited through energy. Love doesn't save anyone, it never has. It's not strong enough to survive unconsciousness, not strong enough to endure blindness, ego, or neglect. What saves you, what saves any relationship, is awareness. The courage to see what's actually happening beneath the surface before it's too late. Most men think love is a promise that protects them from betrayal. But love without awareness is fragile. It turns into routine, into assumption, into emotional sleepwalking. You think you're safe because you're loyal. You think she's loyal because she says she loves you. But loyalty isn't guaranteed, it's maintained. It requires presence. It requires polarity. It requires both people staying awake inside the relationship. Women don't cheat because they're evil or heartless. They cheat because they drift into emotional darkness, and no one, including themselves, notices until the damage is done. What starts as numbness ends as destruction. But awareness could have stopped it. Awareness of her disconnection. Awareness of your complacency. Awareness of the fading tension that once made love electric. Love is the seed, awareness is the soil. Without the latter, nothing grows. So if you take anything from this, let it be this. Don't chase her love, stay conscious in it. Don't assume she's fulfilled. Stay curious. Don't become the safe place that numbs her. Be the steady fire that wakes her. Because in the end, love isn't a feeling you keep. It's a state you protect through awareness. And if you lose that awareness, you don't just lose her, you lose yourself. Love doesn't save you. Awareness does. Your choice. Your life. Start now.